Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Today I thought I'd do a video and share with you a favorite technique of mine, a clever workflow inside of Ableton Live for essentially borrowing a rhythm from one musical part and applying it to another musical part. The example I'm going to be using today is I'm going to be looking for a rhythm to borrow to actually inspire a melodic idea, a melody. So I'm sure you've all been there. I certainly have. You know, some days we're sat in front of the keyboard playing around, noodling around, trying to come up with a nice melody, or we're inside of a MIDI clip trying to draw in some notes, come up with a pattern, and it's just not happening. And in particular, it's not happening in the rhythmic side of things, which can make or break a melody, to be honest. So here's a handy little workflow that can kickstart an inspiration of that. And in all honesty, we can also use this same technique for bass lines, vocal chops, chords, and the list goes on. So what are we going to need to start with? We're going to need to start with a favorite rhythm of some sorts. Whatever that is, in my case, I'm going to use a drum loop, and to be specific, a percussion loop. I would suggest if you're doing this for the first time, maybe also to go for drum loops, as a lot of the programming of drum loops is a great source of inspiration for great rhythms, right? So I've gone into a folder here on my computer, which is full of like percussion loops that sound like this. And essentially, I've just chosen a couple of my favorite ones up here, and I've just dragged and dropped them onto an audio track, just like so. So I've got a couple of favorites already here from that folder. And now what I want to do is lean on Ableton Live to analyze the rhythm inside of that drum loop and turn it into a MIDI clip. So here comes the first little pro tip, and that is that when you're doing this, try and choose that favorite rhythm. Try and choose a loop that's nice and clean, where the hits are clear and, easy for Ableton Live to analyze in the following process that we're about to do. So when I say clean, I mean not much processing on them, like reverbs and delays and lots of heavy effects, because that's going to make it a lot more difficult for Ableton Live to understand what the rhythm of that particular, your favorite rhythmic loop is. So in this case, I've tried to choose loops that are very clear and obvious in terms of the programming of them. So on the top clip up here that I've chosen, it sounds the same as this guy here because it is that one. I'm actually just going to right click on that, which is going to bring up this menu here, and I'm going to choose to convert the drums to a new MIDI track. Great. Happens all nice and fast and quickly. And what we have now on this new track that's appeared is a MIDI clip where Ableton Live has analyzed that drum loop, that percussion loop, and it's placed the sounds in the pattern, which is amazing, and it's placed them on some sounds inside of a drum rack down the bottom here. Now, we're not going to need this drum rack. If you want to keep it, you can, but literally all I really want is this MIDI clip now with the rhythm and the programming of those notes. And then in an ideal world, you'll have, or you'll set one up, an empty MIDI track that you're going to drag that MIDI over to, and on that empty MIDI track you're going to put whatever synth or sound you wish to bring that MIDI to life, whether it's serum, pigments, drift in Ableton, wavetable, whatever you wish. In my case, I've already done that. I've got wavetable on a MIDI track over here, and so I'm going to add the MIDI to that track. Let's do that a second time round. So we're going to delete that empty MIDI track, and we're going to delete the drum rack track. I'm not going to keep that. I don't need that myself. Let's do it with another percussion loop, which sounds like this. Same workflow. Right click on that. Choose convert drums to new MIDI track. Same thing. We already know what's going to happen, so I'm just going to drag the MIDI straight to my wavetable and remove the drum rack. So now we've got two examples we can work with here. And if we look into the very top pattern here, when we move the MIDI away from after the analysis and off of the drum rack, and we bring it to this MIDI track with the wavetable, One thing you're going to notice is that if we zoom in here, where are the MIDI notes? Well, they're right down there in the C1 to C2 octave, and that's a reflection of where they were basically programmed by Ableton on the different pads in the drum rack and the pitches of those different pads. So first things first, unless we're doing a bass line example, I don't want my MIDI notes right down there in C1. So I'm just going to select them all and I'm going to bring them up a couple of octaves, right? So that's the first step there. Let's do it on the other clip as well, so it's also workable. Same thing, it's down here. That's a workflow that's you can pretty much guarantee when Ableton converts the drums to MIDI. It's going to put them on the pads. It's generally going to be a kick, snare, and a hi-hat, and they're going to be C1 going up. So same thing there. Let's move our MIDI notes up. Now the next thing, if we look at the first clip and we zoom in, we've got this sort of random choice then of pitches, right? We've got kind of like D, G sharp, E and D. Now, if those are pitches and MIDI notes like that we want to use in our melody, happy days, we could work with how it's turned out. But I mainly want the rhythm from this. I'm not really also hoping to get a great result on the pitches, even though they might work and they might be interesting. I more wanted to borrow the rhythm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to either turn on globally up the top or over here in the clip envelope, a particular scale. So I'm going to opt for A minor. So A is going to be the root, home bass, and minor is going to be the scale, key and scale. And now what I can do in Ableton Live, which is great because I already know that this G sharp isn't in A minor, is I can pick all my notes together and then come up here in the envelope properties and choose fit to scale. And Ableton's going to very kindly nudge the G sharp into a G, and now all these notes are in A minor. So the second step I'm going to do is I'm actually going to choose to move my notes a little bit lower down because I'm going to start on an A, and I'm going to basically set these notes up to be the very first triad, chord 1 or A minor chord of the A minor key and scale. So first comes first, I've moved the lowest note to an A. Second note, I'm going to bump up 1, so I'm going to play a note, skip a note, play a note, and the third note up here, I'm going to do the same. So I've basically built the chord 1, the triad there between these different pitches. So if we now hit play on this loop, we should have a musical idea that works pitch-wise and now borrows this rhythm. And it sounds pretty good. So that could be a starting place, and we might, I'm just going to move the other clip down a little bit further. Let's copy that clip down, so we've got a second copy of it. So this could be how we leave things, but we also could look in here and we could start to maybe modify this pattern a little bit. And I can see in here a really nice kind of workflow where we don't have to have all the notes playing at the same time, exactly like it was in the drum groove. And we could kind of come up with a nice little contour of a falling and rising kind of melody here that could sound really quite interesting with a nice little bit of a rhythm touch or two to it. So now what have we got here? So that's pretty cool. So we might work like that. We might also, so rather than doing a second one here, I'm going to copy this one down now that I've just started, give it a new color. And in this one, what we could do here is just make it a little bit more sparser. So it could be sort of two little patterns that work together rather than the whole pattern that it was just a moment ago. Just sort of a little bit more stripped back, let's say, and more minimized. Let's have a listen to that. So we're going to bring in just a little bit more up here. So with a little bit of work, I've now got another second melody out of this in terms of a pattern and so on and so forth. And if I came to this particular one here, I could again see that this could be interesting perhaps to mute all of the top notes here and try out the bottom pattern. Great. And then we could add in maybe some of these other notes. But first things first, again, I didn't actually bring these into fitting to a scale. So let's bring that also to A minor for making today a little bit easier. So we use Ableton to fit it to scale, and then we can bring those notes again down to a A. And actually we might even go up an octave, so we make this one a little bit higher. And then what I was thinking here, we could even leave the notes so it'll be a bit of a different chord here, rather than going for the chord 1. So now we've got a bit of a sus chord, or a diminished chord actually, not quite. So we'll leave it for a bit of interest. Right, and so with a bit of imagination, you know, if you wanted to take this further, so far I'm just working with the very basics, the rhythm, and getting things in a key and scale, and just testing things out by just selecting some notes and removing some notes. But of course you can change the pitches of notes, you can change the lengths of them, you could change the timing of them, dragging the whole pattern left and right. There's just, to be honest, a bunch of possibilities. So let's now say that we do just a little bit of work with the synth sound, and I'll just show you how this could come to life like quite quickly. So as a sort of finishing touch a little bit with just what we've done so far. So let's have a drum loop for context. Let's add a bit of processing. Let's try out our other melody. And the B of that one, perhaps the one that needs a bit more work. Yeah, so this one needs a little bit more work. It was just a bit sort of more random in terms of what I've sort of selected and what I haven't selected. But in here are two patterns. We might even just sort of almost have just sort of a start at the beginning of the phrase and then one at the end here. But I'd work a bit more on that sounding nice. But two of these are already working really well. The very first sequence we made, and then the second one from the other percussion loop. And just as an added bonus, sometimes you might even keep like the percussion loops in the final product as well. So maybe if there's not a clash in terms of frequency and things like that, you might actually play the percussion loop. So not only do you use it to borrow the rhythm from it, but you include it as a part. Nice. So both of them work rather than it clashing. So there you go, folks. A very interesting and cool little workflow for those moments, as I said, where we're a bit low on inspiration or it's not working out the way we hoped it would work out. And in this case, we've got a melody going and we've borrowed the rhythm from a favorite loop, a drum loop in this case, converted it over into MIDI and then brought that MIDI in and started turning it into a melody. So on a quick note, in this video, I've kind of shown you the basics of one of many creative workflows in Ableton Live. I'm a music coach. I coach artists, producers, performers, and DJs. And in my coaching sessions, we dive much deeper into Ableton Live and sound design, especially tailored to your own specific situation. So if you're interested in accelerating your progress with some personalized guidance, you can book a free call with me using a link below in the video description. Of course, as always, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Keep on creating, everybody, and thanks for watching. Ciao for now. Bye.